This wasn't just any piece of land. It was the culmination of a lifelong dream. For 15 years, I worked as an architect, designing homes for other families, sketching out their futures while saving for my own. I finally found it, a 5-acre plot of lakeside property, dotted with old-growth pines, where the water turned to glass at sunset. This was where my wife and I would build our forever home, a place our children would remember. We were one of only 3 black families in the prestigious and notoriously particular Evergreen Shores community. When we moved in, the welcome was polite. A few stiff waves, some curious glances that lingered a little too long. The HOA, led by its newly elected president, a woman named Karen whose smile never quite reached her eyes, was known for its meticulous rules. The color of your mailbox, the height of your grass, nothing was too small for a notice. I followed every rule to the letter, wanting nothing more than the quiet enjoyment I had paid for. The first year was peaceful. I designed our home myself, a modern masterpiece of cedar and glass that blended perfectly with the landscape. Life was good. I thought we had found our sanctuary. But I was about to learn that for some people, my presence here was seen not as a neighbor joining a community, but as an intruder on their territory. The trouble began subtly. It started after I returned from a 2-week business trip. As I drove down my long, private driveway, I saw something through the trees that didn't belong. A splash of fresh-cut lumber against the deep green of the forest, right near the water's edge on the most secluded part of my property. My heart sank. I walked through the woods, the crunch of my footsteps masking the pounding in my chest. There it was. The foundation and frame of a small cabin. A construction crew was actively working, their radio echoing across my lakefront. I approached them, my property survey pulled up on my phone, showing my clear boundary lines. They were 100 yards deep into my land. They just shrugged and pointed me toward the HOA, toward Karen. When I found her, she was overseeing the planting of new petunias at the community entrance. She didn't feign surprise. She explained, with a condescending calmness, that the board had approved the construction of a community access cabin, a place for residents to enjoy the lake. I showed her my survey, my deed. I explained that this community access was on private land, my land. Her smile tightened. She told me I must be mistaken. She spoke slowly, as if I were a child, about easements and old community charters, none of which existed. It became clear she wasn't listening. In her eyes, that beautiful stretch of shoreline wasn't truly mine. It belonged to the community she presided over, and I was just an obstacle. I sent a cease and desist letter via my lawyer. It was ignored. I sent a second certified letter demanding they remove their materials and personnel. Also ignored. The construction continued at an accelerated pace. Each day the cabin grew more complete, a monument to their entitlement standing defiantly on my land. I would see other residents walk down past the construction site, waving pleasantly at me as if I should be happy about this new amenity. The violation was profound. They weren't just trespassing, they were erasing my ownership, acting as if I and my rights were invisible. After a month of being stonewalled, I realized the system wasn't going to help me. The letters were useless. The HOA, under Karen's direction, operated as its own kingdom with its own set of rules that apparently superseded state law. They were counting on me to get tired, to give in, to accept the theft of my own land. They miscalculated. They mistook my patience for weakness. That morning, I made a different kind of phone call, not to my lawyer, but to a local demolition company. The next afternoon, a flatbed truck carrying a yellow excavator rumbled down my driveway. The operator, a grim-faced man who had seen my paperwork and simply nodded, knew exactly what to do. The first impact of the machine's bucket against the cabin's new roof was like a thunderclap. Wood splintered, nails shrieked, and a wall caved in. It was a beautiful, terrible sound. I stood a safe distance away, recording everything on my phone. It didn't take long for Karen to appear, her car skidding to a halt. She stormed towards the scene, her face a mask of pure rage. She was shouting, her finger jabbing first at the excavator, then at me. I didn't say a word. I just kept recording. The police she called arrived minutes later. 2 officers walked up, looking stern. Karen launched into a frantic tirade. I calmly stopped my recording, greeted the officers, and handed them a folder. Inside was a copy of my property deed, the official county survey map, copies of the 2 ignored cease and desist letters, and the invoice from the demolition company. One officer reviewed the documents, looked at the cabin turned rubble, and looked at me. He handed the folder back, turned to Karen, and explained that this was a civil matter, and that I was well within my rights to remove an unauthorized structure from my own property. They couldn't do a thing. Her face fell, the mask of fury replaced by stunned disbelief. For the first time, she was powerless. My victory was short-lived. The silence from the HOA lasted exactly 1 week before the lawsuit arrived. They sued me for the cost of the demolished cabin and punitive damages. Their legal argument was a fantasy, a tangled web of non-existent verbal agreements and fabricated easements. It was a clear abuse of the legal system, designed to punish me for standing my ground and to bleed me dry financially. But they had exposed their entire hand. In the discovery process, my lawyer uncovered everything. Karen had pushed the project through without a proper vote from the HOA board, using reserve funds under the guise of landscaping improvements. Emails revealed her dismissive attitude towards my complaints, referring to me as the new guy, and arguing that the character of the community depended on having that shared space, a space they felt entitled to. The implicit bias was laid bare for the court to see. The judge threw their case out in a summary judgment, calling it frivolous and vindictive. My countersuit, however, was a different story. I sued the HOA and Karen personally for trespass, damages to my property, and legal fees. I won. The judgment wasn't just a financial victory. It was a public repudiation of their behavior. Karen was forced to resign as president, and the HOA was compelled to issue a formal apology. I rebuilt the patch of land where the cabin stood. I planted a small grove of maple trees there, a quiet testament to the fight. But the experience left a scar. I had the deed, the survey, and the law on my side, yet I was still forced into a battle that cost me time, money, and peace of mind, all to prove that I belonged on land that was already mine. It makes you wonder, when a person has to move heaven and earth just to claim what is rightfully theirs, is the property line the only boundary that was truly being tested?